Today we're trying a Spätburgunder. Spätburgunder is just the German for Pinot Noir. And today in particular we're trying a Bernhard Huber, his Alte Reben, which means old vines, 2011 Spätburgunder. So it comes from Baden in Germany, which is in the southwest of Germany. It's pretty much on the French-German border. If you go south of Stuttgart, then you pretty much hit it. And yeah, German Spätburgunder. Let's get it open. I like them because they're not ripe, and I, particularly in the Australian market for Burgundy or Pinot Noir from the New World, find that quite a lot of Pinot Noir in those markets from those places these days are fairly ripe, fairly sweet fruited, often show quite a bit of oak. And if you're looking for a more savoury style of Pinot Noir, then German Spätburgunder is a pretty good bet. Bernhard Huber is considered one of the premier producers of Spätburgunder, and unfortunately he actually died a few years ago, so in 2014 I believe. So what happens to these wines in the estate, I'm not actually sure. Drink them while you can, I guess. So 2011 Alte Reben, let's get in there. Already on the nose, it's just a really savoury Pinot Noir nose. The fruit is all kind of berries that are like red currant. You know, there's a sourness to them, like hedgerow fruits actually. And even the nose is reminiscent of a British hedgerow. Like you've got dampness in there, twigs, leaves, earth, berries like red currant, blackberry that's not very ripe, maybe even a little elderberry, to be honest. There's a bit of cherry there too, but it's all really savoury. It's all really kind of sour-ish fruits. And then you've got that forest floor kind of smell, the hedgerow, the undergrowth. Really undergrowthy is probably the best term. Damp, slightly mulchy undergrowth. Perhaps even a little touch of mushroom there. Old decaying woods, you know, like wood that maybe has a bit of fungus growing on it even, or lichen on it in a European wood. Oh, the palate, lots of acidity. You perhaps have to not mind Pinot Noir with a good acidity to it, but it also has a reasonable amount of body, 13% alcohol apparently. So it's not too ripe, it's not too big, but it's not ungenerous either. Very enjoyable to drink for me. All those flavours of the nose come out on the palate, all the undergrowthy character, the kind of slightly sweet sour play of the fruit. It's not too oaky either. There's no vanilla in here. There's not really much oak lactones, like a sweet kind of character of oak that you get, or any coconut or any toast or any woodsiness, apart from the wood that you might smell in a forest. It's not overtly oaky in any way, and has nice balance, nice drive. The acid really drives it. There are some tannins there. They're not particularly big, heavy. I wouldn't say they have that perhaps fineness that a lot of Burgundies have, that voluptuousness, or even the peacock's tail in the finish where you get that explosion. On this particular one you don't have that explosion of flavour in the finish, but it does finish well. It's more it's reasonably long, but it's more just about savoury flavours for me. And it does have pinosity, it has Pinot character. It's just a very savoury version of that. It's a bit more like old school Burgundy, and maybe doesn't have quite the same texture and is a bit more acid driven than a lot of traditional Burgundian style Pinot. But with the way that Burgundy I feel is going these days, it's really nice just to have a savoury Pinot, and that kind of, if you're looking for that kind of more old school Pinot flavour of Burgundy, or just a savoury Pinot Noir, German Spätburgunder is a great way to go. If you can find a Bernhard Huber, any of his bottlings really, I highly recommend it. Bernhard Huber, Spätburgunder, or any German Spätburgunder. Try it. This one retails for about 80 Australian, which is quite a lot of money really for a Pinot Noir. But when you compare it to Burgundian prices, that's quite reasonable really for what you're getting here. I think if you appreciate the style, it's really hard to find a Pinot Noir anywhere in the world that is as savoury as this. And so if that's what you're looking for, then it probably is worth the money anyway. Obviously significantly cheaper in other markets than it is in Australia with our extortionate import taxes and so on, and wine taxes generally. But I would, it's still worth it to me because of the point of difference, I think.
There's a little bit of a lacticity, butteriness on the nose and palate, but it doesn't seem, as you said, it doesn't seem to be an oaky sort. Can that come from the Pinot fruit itself, do you think? Or like as in like a malolactic fermentation thing? Or do you think that's from the wood?
I would say it's more likely the mallow and the wood than the fruit itself. Yeah. I mean, no, I said it's not oaky. It's not oaky in the sense of new oak. And it's not oaky in the sense of being over the top, like the oak isn't stronger than the fruit. It's more the fruit undergrowth character than the wood, I suppose, but there is a fair bit of that kind of forest floor woodsiness to it. So that character, at least in part, I would say, is probably from the old oak that is used for it. But then the mallow might contribute to that character of the butteriness as well. Yeah, and perhaps the tannins to some extent, because they're fairly fine here. They have a certain smoothness to them, I feel.
So that could come across as like a cream or a...
Yeah, exactly.
Spätburgunders, in general, do you find, well, the ones you've been able to get in Australia, do they tend to be more savoury overall than modern day Burgundy, or is it just particular ones like this?
No, I'd say overall they are.
They still trend that way?
Yeah, because of the climate in Germany, I think.
Okay.
It's just harder to get them riper, perhaps. And yeah, this is the south of Germany. I mean, it's still warm there, but you know, it's at elevation, and well, it's still Germany, and still fairly far north. So
do you think it's more a matter of what's capable with the fruit there, rather than a deliberate stylistic difference by German winemakers?
Probably a bit of both, because I do feel that German Riesling these days is not even the dry stuff. I mean the traditional German Rieslings that were sweeter, like Cabinets, Spätlese, Auslesers, that were particularly big in export markets. They're riper these days. They're a lot riper than they used to be. And so
because
there's
of the climate,
because
of style.
I think both.
Change?
I think both. I think the climate change has meant that it's easier to make them riper, and a lot of winemakers, even traditional winemakers, like winemakers who would have been considered to make a traditional style of German Riesling, you know,
are going with that.
Yeah, they're going. Yes.
Reasons, perhaps.
I feel, yeah. So it is both the climate and the deliberate stylistic choices made by the winemakers, I feel, but I think in Spätburgunder, generally they're holding it. You do find ones where they've pushed it a little bit, or they've hit it with a lot of oak, and they're bigger on the palate, like a bit more alcohol, and sweeter oak and things like that. That can ruin it. But the fruit character still has a savouriness to it. So I feel like they probably are a bit limited by the climatic conditions, so the fruit always has a certain savoury character to it, but some winemakers choose to push that in a different direction and make a kind of slightly riper, bigger, oakier style, whereas other producers like Bernhard make it more restrained and more about the less ripe flavours and fruit character, and not so much about the oak. More savoury, yeah.
Do you think Spätburgunders are underappreciated, or just not as well known, or something else?
I think they are underappreciated, and that's probably because they're not so well known internationally. In Germany, they are probably most appreciated there because that's where they're best known, and they probably suffer a little bit of a syndrome of being Burgundy's lesser cousin. Internationally, everyone just thinks of Burgundy when they think of Pinot Noir, and quite rightly, probably because the best of Burgundy, nothing really can match that, I don't think, for complexity, elusiveness, balance, ageability, those kind of qualities. But Spätburgunder does hold its own. There are lots of Spätburgunders that are better than lots of Burgundies, and I think it's probably hard to think of anywhere else in the world right now that can offer Pinot Noir that savoury. Even a lot of Burgundies are not there anymore. So,
is Baden a particularly common place for Spätburgunder, or is it grown all around Germany?
It's grown
all the regions.
No, it's not grown in regions further north much because they just can't get the ripeness there. But in the southern regions. But Baden is one of the premier regions for Spätburgunder. The majority of vines planted there are Spätburgunder. Mm-hmm. So it's a Spätburgunder region, really. Yeah, so it's a good place for it. So if you're looking for a Spätburgunder, try one from Baden, maybe even Bernhard. This one in particular is Alte Reben. 2011. Try it. Hey, so today we're trying a Spätburgunder. Spätburgunder is just the German for Pinot Noir. And this particular Spätburgunder is Bernhard Huber, who's considered to be one of the great Pinot Noir makers in Germany. It's his cuvée Alte Reben, which just means old vines. I think they're meant to be 25 to 40 or 60-year-old vines. This is a 2011 vintage, 13% alcohol apparently. German Pinot Noir. If you're not familiar with Pinot Noir from the old world, or you're only really familiar with Pinot Noir from Burgundy in the old world, I think you should try a German Pinot Noir because they have something different to offer. If you like more savoury Pinot Noir, if you like to see, more savoury flavours like forest floor and mushroom and things like that, then German Pinot Noir is a good way to go. Spätburgunder is the way to go. More savoury in its acid profile too, lighter on the palate generally, and often less oaky. A lot of Burgundies these days are pretty getting riper than they used to be. They're made riper than they used to be, a lot of them, particularly those exported to New World countries, in my opinion. And where do you go when Burgundy starts getting too ripe for you? Head further north, cool the climate. Spätburgunder. So let's give this one a go. Serving it reasonably cool, like 18 Celsius I think is probably pretty good. Or 16, 18, somewhere around there. You can see there it's does have that kind of classic Pinot colour. It's not too deep, although it has a reasonable richness to it, this particular one. And then on the nose, oh fuck, it's corked.
Is it?
Yeah.
Sometimes I can't tell
That's
in amongst...
really corked too. That's really fucking corked. That'll be an outtake.
I always feel like you should put that on as a video and then it just cuts short. Fuck, it's cooked. And then that's the end of the video.